Nichiren forbade something every meditation tradition on earth takes for granted. Tibetan monks build gods in their minds. Zen students count breath until the self dissolves. Nichiren Buddhism does neither, because for Nichiren, there was nothing left to visualize. The object of devotion he inscribed, the Gohonzon, already is the externalized Buddha nature. Picture it, and you rebuild the very distance the practice exists to collapse. This was not an oversight. Nichiren named the practice directly and forbade it by name. Maybe you've sat there yourself, eyes shut, trying to conjure some image of the sacred, and felt nothing. Failed, maybe. You didn't fail. That habit, closing the eyes, waiting for an image, comes from somewhere else entirely. Nichiren's Japan never asked it of you. Nichiren wrote the reason down in April 1273 inside a collapsing hut beside a graveyard at Tsukahara on Sado Island. 5 weeks earlier, on a beach called Tatsunokuchi, soldiers had raised a sword to execute him. One sentence in that letter draws the line between his practice and centuries of contemplative Buddhism before him, and somewhere inside it is a mirror. We'll read it exactly as he wrote it. First, the mountain he was rejecting. 6 centuries before Nichiren, a monk named Zhiyi climbed Mount Tiantai and never came back down. For 8 months in the year 594, he sat in a meditation hall and lectured on a single idea: that the whole universe fits inside one moment of thought. 10 worlds, 10 more inside each of those. 10 factors running through all of it. 3 separate planes of existence. Multiply it out, and you get 3,000 realms present in every single heartbeat of consciousness. Zhiyi called the record of those lectures the Mohe Zhiguan, the Great Cessation and Insight. 10 scrolls of it, Buddhism's most demanding instruction manual for the human mind. To realize the theory, a monk sat, silently, for years, watching each thought rise and dissolve, hunting the exact moment a delusion turns into wisdom. Nichiren had a name for this kind of practice: contemplation in principle, Li in Japanese. The truth is already there, you simply have to outthink your way to it. It worked for the few who could manage it. Zhiyi's own students studied under him for over a decade before he considered them ready. Ordinary people were not invited. A farmer, a fisherman, a mother raising 4 children through famine. None of them had the years this method demanded. Then the age changed. Nichiren arrived on Sado Island in the winter of 1271, 5 weeks after soldiers raised a sword to execute him on a beach called Tatsunokuchi. The execution was called off at the last moment. Officials exiled him to Sado instead, an island reserved for men not expected to return. They dropped him at Tsukahara, an abandoned temple, its roof long collapsed, standing inside a graveyard, surrounded by hostile locals who wanted him dead. The freezing winds have blown continually. I am experiencing the suffering of the 8 cold hills. Here, the hearts of men are like those of animals. They know neither ruler, lord, nor parent. Written shortly after Nichiren's arrival at the abandoned temple in the graveyard at Tsukahara during the Sado exile. Food ran short. Threats of assassination were constant. By any ordinary measure, this was where a teacher's work should have ended. Instead, Nichiren read his own suffering as scripture. He called it Hoshaku Kenbon, casting off the transient, revealing the true. The Lotus Sutra had predicted a persecuted teacher. He now understood he was living inside that prediction. This was Mappo, the latter day of the law, the age Nichiren believed had arrived. People here did not have Zhiyi's 10 scrolls or 10 years to sit in silence. They had famine, war rumors from the Mongol court, and one lifetime. The same gap sits between you and any visualization practice today. Not enough time, not enough training. Nichiren knew exactly what that felt like. So on Sado, in that graveyard temple, he did something no one before him had done. On April 25th, 1273, inside that same collapsing temple, Nichiren finished a treatise called the Kanjin no Honzon-sho, the object of devotion for observing the mind. It did not describe a meditation, it described an object. For those who are incapable of understanding the truth of ichinen sanzen, Lord Sakyamuni Buddha, with his great compassion, wraps this jewel in the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo, and hangs it around the neck of the ignorant in the latter age of degeneration. The 3,000 realms Zhiyi spent 10 scrolls explaining, the entire structure ordinary people had no years to climb toward. Nichiren wrapped into 5 characters. Myoho Renge Kyo. Not explained, delivered. Tiemte dealt only with contemplating the Dharma, not with practicing the Dharma. To practice the Dharma means to chant the 5 characters, Myoho Renge Kyo, before the Most Venerable One. Contemplating, not practicing. That single distinction is the entire argument. Nichiren named this shift himself, Ji ichinen sanzen, 3,000 realms in actuality, not principle. He took a brush and inked it directly. Down the center, the 5 characters of the mystic law. Down the sides, all 10 worlds, from the hill realm to Buddhahood itself, gathered onto a single sheet of paper. On July 8th, 1273, 2.5 months later, still on Sado, he inscribed the first one by hand. He called it the Gohonzon, the object of devotion. The old word for meditation, Kanjin, observing the mind, got a new definition that day. Juji soku Kanjin. To embrace this object is itself to observe the mind. Nothing left to build inside your head. It was already finished on the page. Which raises the obvious question, why does looking replace imagining? Because visualizing puts a picture between you and the thing itself. And the moment you do that, you've built exactly the distance Nichiren spent his life trying to close. What Nichiren wrote next about that distance is the part almost no practitioner ever hears explained. Never seek this Gohonzon outside yourself. The Gohonzon exists only within the mortal flesh of us ordinary people who embrace the Lotus Sutra and chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. The body is the palace of the 9th consciousness, the unchanging reality that reigns over all of life's functions. Read that again slowly. The Gohonzon is not out there for you to reach toward. It's not even primarily the paper. It's already inside the body doing the chanting. Nichiren had a term for this fusion, Kyochi Myogo. The object and the wisdom perceiving it merged, with no gap between them. Tibetan deity yoga starts with 2 things, a practitioner and a deity to be visualized. 2. Even meant to dissolve later, the split is there at the start. Nichiren refused to open that gap in the first place. So when you sit down and try to picture anything, the Gohonzon, an outcome, a version of yourself further along, you are quietly reopening a door Nichiren spent a persecution-filled life trying to shut. If you think the law is outside yourself, you are embracing not the mystic law, but an inferior teaching. A mind now clouded by the illusions of the innate darkness of life is like a tarnished mirror, but when polished, it is sure to become like a clear mirror, reflecting the essential nature of phenomena and the true aspect of reality. Arouse deep faith and diligently polish your mirror day and night. How should you polish it? Only by chanting Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Nobody stands in front of a mirror and closes their eyes to picture their own face. They just look. Chanting is the looking. The Gohonzon is the mirror already installed. Everything you need to go deeper is at NMRKOB.com or follow the link in the description or pinned comment. Nichiren was pardoned from Sado in 1274, 9 months after inscribing that first Gohonzon, and he kept inscribing them, over 100 by the time he died, each one meant for a specific person by name. Which means what you're looking at, if you have a Gohonzon of your own, sits inside a lineage of that same handwritten choice, repeated on purpose for every single practitioner since. So here is the practice, plainly. Sit before the Gohonzon with your eyes open. Look directly at the calligraphy, the actual ink on the actual page, not a picture built behind your eyelids. Sit, however, keeps your spine easy and your eyes level with the scroll. Nichiren left no rule about posture, only about where your attention lands. Chant and let your voice match what your eyes are doing, both resting on the same object at the same time with nothing in between. When a distracting thought arrives, anger, a worry, something unresolved from the day, Nichiren never asked you to visualize it away. Bring it to the mirror exactly as it is. That thought is the mud. The lotus needs the mud to grow. This answers the most common question practitioners ask before they've read a single page of Nichiren's actual writing. Should the eyes stay open? Yes, every time. It isn't a rule imposed from outside. It's the direct consequence of what the Gohonzon already is. There is nothing to construct in your mind because the construction already happened on Sado Island in April of 1273 with a brush and a sheet of paper. Remember the instinct from the beginning of this video, the urge to shut your eyes and wait for something sacred to appear. That urge isn't wrong, and it isn't a personal failure either. It's just aimed at a problem that, in this practice, was resolved 700 years before you sat down. There's nothing missing to picture. There's only something already in front of you to see. That's the whole instruction. Simple, direct, nothing hidden behind it. The same document he wrote from a graveyard in the cold turned into the simplest practice there is. Look and chant and mean it. If this kind of primary source study is denied useful to you, the channel exists because people like you support it directly. There's a link below, and a small store with a few pieces that help fund the work behind videos like this one. A subscription costs nothing and tells YouTube more people want this kind of grounded Buddhism. That's the second way to help, if the first doesn't fit. Nichiren did not tell you to imagine Buddhahood. He handed you a mirror and told you to look, eyes open, exactly as you are.